Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new video. I'm Dagget, this is Dagget Designs, and in today's video we are going to be drawing a neo-traditional style octopus tattoo design. Now if you already know you're going to love today's video, make sure you smash that like button and leave a comment down below letting me know what you'd like to see in future videos. With that having been said, let's get straight into today's video by going to the overhead. Okay everybody, welcome back to the table. So I'm starting off with some sketch paper. Just got this little pad of sketch paper that I'd like to use up. I've got a mechanical pencil to sketch our design and an eraser should we need it. Now to start off with for this one, like I said, we're drawing a neo-traditional style octopus. So we're going to start off by drawing in the main body and head shape, and then we'll add the tentacles in later, so all the arms, the limbs. So we're going to start off with a little egg shape. Like this. That's going to be the main portion of our body. I want to have this angled up in that direction, and I want to make sure to leave enough room at the front and at the back for our tentacles, which are going to be coming off of this side mostly. So you sort of want to make sure you leave enough space around it. From there I want to add in a center line that just runs up and around following the contour of our egg shape here. Now at the front of this section I just add in a circle, and I'll come back slightly with a curved line, and then behind that I'll just pop in another circle or semicircle type shape like this. Will be for the opposite eye. Now at the circle that's at the front here, I'm going to double up and just add another circle to the inside of that. That will give me the actual inner portion of the eye there. And then just underneath both of, or just underneath these oval and this circle here, I'm going to draw this little, almost like a cone shape that comes out. There's a little round bit at the end, so you can just draw in an oval for that. And then drop that back to underneath the body. It's just like this little cone shape here. Now I'm not sure what they're actually called, but it's kind of like the little breathing tube, like gills maybe, I'm not too sure. Now before we add any detail to this, I'm going to go ahead and map out all of my limbs. So I like to do this in the same way that I do snake and dragon bodies, which is basically just little spirals, and then you drag them out and taper them off. So that will be the method I'm using here, and you can just do your best to follow along. So I'm going to start just underneath our little tube here. I'll come out and down like this, and I might bring that up, overlap my body a little bit, and then bring that down and slowly taper it off like this. Now the most important thing with these tentacles, to make sure that your taper is smooth. You don't want like it to go thick and then really thin and then thick again. You want to sort of have a nice slow taper towards the end of the tentacle. The other important thing I think is to have parts of it overlapping your body and tentacles overlapping tentacles. Because this is a neo-traditional design, we're going to use line weight boosting to differentiate different parts of the design, and that's going to make this look neo-traditional. It's going to give it that style or elements of that style. So from here I'll put in the next tentacle just in front of that one. You want these to all sort of join to each other. So I'll start dropping in my spiral here, and I'll bring that up, and I might loop it behind itself, and back down and around like this. So you got that one coming up and around, and it takes a bit of practice and you have to play around with these spirals a little bit, but eventually you'll find what shapes work well for you and how to maneuver your hand in the correct manner to get these spirals in. So the next tentacle I want is the frontmost one on the left side here. Now yes, octopus have 8 limbs, 8 arms, or 8 tentacles. When we're doing an illustration like this, if you want to try and pack all 8 in there, you can. However, it's not completely necessary. Some of the tentacles would be hidden on the other side of the body, or more curled up or something like this. So I like to show, you know, at least 5 or 6 of them, but you don't have to show all 8. I'll bring this one out from the front of our body. I like to have a forwards facing limb, and I'll bring that up, over and forward like this for that limb there. I think I want to have one that comes from behind the body, dips back down, and then comes out the front. So I'll bring one out from behind the body here, have it loop around, trying to keep that size consistent. As it comes down behind the eye, it's going to emerge back out the front here. Just like this. Might have it create a little loop within itself and then spiral out like that. So now you got this tentacle that weaves in, curls around itself and comes out like that. And I also want to have a couple of, maybe a shadow tentacle back here. So basically this one is not going to be outlined or colored nearly as cleanly or clearly as the rest of the design. You'll see what I mean when we get to coloring, but it's going to push it really far back, almost into the background, but more so to a point where it looks like it's in the shadows, you know, behind some of the water. You wouldn't be able to see that tentacle quite as well because of where it's sitting. And this is something that you see quite common with neo-traditional designs as well, is you'll push certain elements back via either line work or how you shade and color them. Okay, so looking now at how to add some of the details to the main body of our octopus. Doing the tentacles is quite complex, so I'll start with the body here. So I'll start with this front circle, and I just want to create a solid curve around the front portion of it, like this, a little loop. And just underneath it as well with a little S-curve. For the actual eye shape, I want to bring a little loop in on either side. Like this. Follow the shape of my inner circle there. And then on the inside of this, it's going to be very similar to a frog eye or a goat eye. You're pretty much going to have like a larger portion of black at the front. It's going to get skinnier in the middle and then come back out towards the back like this. So that's sort of your octopus eye shape, but you can of course play around with that, and it really depends on the style. You know, maybe if this was more a Japanese style illustration, if you were doing this as more of a character, you might give the eye a little bit more personality. You might make it look a little bit more human-like. It depends on the style of illustration. From the back of the eye, I'm also going to add a little bit of a solid line like this. And I might also just add a couple of flicks like this to indicate some scrunched up sort of flesh. For the little tube, you're pretty much just going to make that look more solid on this outside line. The little oval on the inside, the top line can be really solid and the bottom line a little bit thinner. And then to make sure this is obvious that this is the front and that's the side plane, I'll add in a small thin line across the top here. And that can be outlined with a grey wash or a really fine liner. Now coming to do the back eye and the top of the body here, I'm basically going to join the two via a little curved line that joins into the body like this. I'll come out from behind that into my circle shape, coming around. And then to link that to the front eye, we'll just come under with a little U-shaped curve like that in the middle. Now at this point, this is going to be completely optional. I like to add some little spines coming down the back to add a little bit of a different style to this. You could play around with different patterns on your octopus, and you know, sometimes they'll have little spikes like this, sometimes they'll be completely smooth. An octopus is able to shift and change its structure and its color, so of course you can play around with so many different features here, and there's a lot of neat things you can do with an octopus. Okay, so from here I'm just going to make that line at the back a little more solid, joining it up. We'll bring this one around, not quite through the tentacle there, and then out the other side. Okay, and that's pretty much how you're going to draw the main body portion of your octopus. Now coming in to draw your tentacles, like I said, this will be quite similar to snake bodies. There's going to be like a belly side and a top side to it. We'll start with this one right here. So coming out from underneath the body, we'll just make this line solid as we come up and around. And we'll bring that down and flick it off at the end and loop that back around. Now at this point here, we're gonna have some like belly showing, or in other words, like the little suckers on the tentacles showing. So you can start to thin that line out a little bit. And then to join it into your next tentacle, I just bring it straight across like that to the next one. So I don't come all the way back up to the body before coming out. I actually come across it with this little curve, and that creates a webbed look between the tentacles. Now to draw in that so-called belly portion, I'll just come down off this curve a little bit and join it in like that. So that's going to be where your suckers sit, and you might need to play around with the thickness of that a little bit. Depends how much is going to be showing, and this is the same sort of experimentation you need to do when you're drawing dragon and snake bodies. It's actually a very difficult thing to do, and it does take some practice. Okay, coming in to do the next tentacle here. Sometimes it helps to add in a little center line first before you come in to do the top half and bottom half. This line will link into the top half like this, and that will basically come around the same way a snake belly would, and linking that around like that. So that's the center line of the top portion of the tentacle there. Now we're going to have a little bit of the suckers showing along this edge here. This whole panel at the front here is going to be showing before it loops back around like this. For the front tentacle here, there's not going to be too much showing at all. Just going to bring it up and around, and then this very front part will cross over itself and show some of those suckers on the other side. Other than that, it's just going to come back and then go straight back into the top half, the outside portion of the tentacle there. Now for the other one on the outside here, we're going to bring this around like so. That will come out and around, and this is going to be the portion where the suckers are visible on the inside of the tentacle here, and then you can bring that out the other side. Okay, so at this point I'm adding in the little suckers on the tentacles. The way I like to do this is split up that section that you're going to put the suckers on into two, because we're going to do 2 rows. Whenever there's an edge exposed where there would be some of these little suckers, make that a little bit thinner. It's going to look like little rectangles, I guess, with rounded corners for the suckers on these. So they might look something like that. Now, as we come around onto the portion where they're really visible, or at least the front of them is visible, you can start to make them into ovals. So just bringing these oval shapes onto here. And then on the inside of those ovals, you can just put another little circle or ring on the inside that indicates that they are like little suction cups. And you'll do that for both of the rows. So adding in another oval on the opposite side to the ones you just did to add in your little rows of suckers. Now I'm going to go ahead and add all of the suckers to my tentacles now, but before I do that, I just want to give you a slightly better look at these. So side on view of them is just going to be like a little rectangle shape with rounded corners like this. When you see the front side of them, they would look more like this with the little sucker on the inside of it. And when you see them partially on the side, there's going to be more of a longer oval shape to it, like this. And then the sides of it should come down slightly like that. So you're seeing a 3/4 angle. This is a complete side angle that you're seeing, and this is a top angle, a top down bird's eye view angle of that sucker. And this is like a side to top angle. So you're seeing the very edge that overlaps from the side to the top. So if you need to draw any like this, you can go ahead and do that. Now, once you've added all of the suckers onto your tentacles, it's pretty much time to finish up the sketch for this one. So we're going to go ahead and add in these lines of contour on the tentacles. Now these are optional as well, but it's another little detail that I like to add a little bit of functional dimension to the tentacles to give them a little bit more shape and structure. So I think the best example of that will probably be this one on the edge here, So now what you can see with this one is that I've split it up into 3 muscle sections. So I've got this outer muscle running along here, and then a central muscle running along the top ridge of our octopus tentacle here. So it's actually split off at one point, and a good way to demonstrate that is at the edges of curves like this. You can stop it and then just come up again, and you only want that to be ever so slight. You really don't want that bump to be over the top noticeable. And then you can just bring a faint line around, and this will be done in a really fine liner. And sometimes I'll even do this for dragon and snake bodies. Another really great way to show these contours is to add in some contour lines. So we'd have a line following the curve of the outside of our tentacle. We'll say 3 lines like this. And they're going to dip down into that little crevice between the 2 muscles and then come back out and around. Like this. So that's going to give it that slight shape. Now, it's not actually necessary to draw these bands all over your tentacles, but it can help to throw in a few light contour lines here and there to help give shape to each of these elements. Okay, at this stage, our basic little octopus illustration is finished. You could go ahead and add some background elements if you'd like. I'm going to transfer it to watercolor paper so that we can start painting this design. Okay, so I've transferred the design over to watercolor paper using some fine liners. I used a 0.5 for most of the line work, a 1.2 for the fatter lines, and you can see I've only done those fat lines where our design overlaps itself. This is what sort of gives it that layering of line weights. And then I used a 0.05 for all of the contour lines on the tentacles and the little line on the inside of the eye there. So what colors I have set up here, I've got carbon black. I've got carbon black with a bit of water to make a grey wash. I've got turquoise, and I've actually added a couple of drops of water to the turquoise as well. I have vivid red orange with a drop of pyrrole red because I want it to be a little bit darker. And I've also got some of our yellow orange azo or golden yellow. Along with this, I've got 3 brushes. You don't actually have to use 3 brushes for this. I'm not 100% sure what sizes I'll need. I've got a 6, a 5, and a number 1, so I'm not 100% sure what sizes I'll use for this one, but we shall see. And I've also got a glass of water for blending and washing the brushes out. Alright, so as usual, we're going to be starting off with our black shading. So just getting my brushes wet here. And as always, we're going to go in with an inking brush and pick up a bit of our black. Now I want to have a fairly heavy shadow around the bottom edge of our body here, where it's sort of been obscured by this tentacle, and it's also just sort of going down and back into the depths there. So I'll add a bit of black towards the back here, and I want to sort of make sure I'm following the contours of the shape that I'm shading. So I try to keep this shading curved, following the contours of our body shape there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take my blending brush with a bit of water, drag out some feathering on that edge, and then gently blend that feathering back to a nice grey. I'm now going to add a bit of black shading to some of the tentacles here. I'm not going to do any on these front 2. I want to leave those a little bit lighter and maybe just do a bit of grey wash shading on them. I'm going to take this back tentacle here and add a little bit of black at the base of the part where you see the tentacle coming out from behind the body. Not too much. And then take my blending brush and blend that up and forward. Now I might also add a bit of black to the top of this front tentacle here. Just a very small amount to show the shadow coming down from where the head starts. I'll feather that out and blend it forward. Now the last place I'll be adding a little bit of black will just be at the back of the opposing eye at the back here. And again, just taking my blending brush with a bit of water to blend that forward and around. Okay, now from here I'm going to go in just with my blending brush and we're going to start applying some grey wash. So the way I like to do this is for those parts of the tentacles where you've got the contour lines, you can use your grey wash to shade the sort of crevice in between the 2 muscle structures there, like this. and then get a bit of water just to soften the edges of that a little bit. This is going to help separate and define those two parts of the tentacle, the two different sections. Now for this tentacle that's in the background, which is our sort of shadow tentacle, I'm pretty much just going to come in with grey wash to paint that in so that it's dark and in the background here. So just painting that in with grey for the time being. And when you get to an edge that's just behind another part of the body, you can of course just blend that out. Okay, now you're also going to take your grey wash and go in between your suckers. So just anything that's in between the top portion, the little rounded portion of your suckers, you can take a little bit of your grey wash and just work in between them. This way, when we colour them in with our turquoise wash later on, they will have sort of a darker recessed area to them, and this will help give them a little bit more shape. You can also add a bit of grey wash to the inside middle portion of the sucker, that inner ring, and this will achieve the same result. Now, a couple of other things to use grey wash for before we get into doing the rest of our colour here is just inside the eye at the very top where our highlight is. I'm going to bring in a little bit of grey wash around the highlight, and then I'll just use a bit of water to help sort of blend that down into the white, and this is going to add a little bit of a different colour and tone to the eye, make it look shiny. And for the section on the body, originally I was going to do some sort of pattern work, but I think it would be cool just to do some little rings. And so I would just get my grey wash here and do little rings of grey along the body. And because it's grey wash, they're not going to be super harsh, but once you add colour over the top of them, they will still be visible, and that's going to look really cool. Now you may notice as I'm doing this that I start with grey wash at the back there, and I try to start a little bit darker, and then I don't re-dip my brush because I actually want this to get lighter as we go forward into the lighter sort of sections of the design. So at the back there it started more in the shadows, and then I'll actually just allow my brush to naturally run out of ink as I come forward so that the little ovals and circle patterns get lighter as I come forward. Now if you'd like to, you can of course continue this pattern throughout the body. I like to leave more gaps as I come down onto the face and onto the rest of the tentacles and that. Sort of more full on the body section and a little bit less crowded on other areas of the design, but it's completely up to you if you even want to go this route for the pattern. I think adding these little rings looks really cool, but it's completely up to you. Now, once you've done those areas of grey wash and the pattern work throughout the body there, we can go ahead and start adding some colour. So just wash your brushes out. And I'll start by jumping into some of my yellow just to get it out of the way. So getting a little bit of my yellow orange azon here and coming in to do my eye. Now we're going to work straight over the top of the grey wash that we did, and I'm going to avoid that ring that I did around the pupil. And as I get to the bottom of the eye, I'm going to blend that yellow out to white. This way you get a little bit of a highlight towards the bottom of the eye. This will give it a nice shiny sort of glossy look. Okay, from here, go ahead and take your vivid red orange, and like I said, I've mixed a bit of pyrrole red in there just to help darken it a little bit. You know, I like a sort of darker color for the outside of the body. And I'm going to come into my black shading here, straight over the top of my blacks and my grays, and work a bit of this color onto the body. So this will give you a slightly salmony sort of red color, which I really like for doing Octopus. Kind of works well for a lot of sea creatures actually. It's quite a vibrant color. And then you can just take some water and work on blending that up towards the spine or the center of the body here. Now we'll bring in a bit of that color from the other side of our spines. And there's not going to really be any blending or shading on this side, just solid color. If you'd like to, towards the front here, you could do a little bit of blending just to help smoothen things before it reaches the head portion there. Now coming on to doing the head portion here, I'll bring my red around from the back of this eye here. And as I reach the very front, I'll blend that out and forward. This is to give us some little highlight areas of sort of lighter flesh. And you can bring that in and around these little textures on the front of the head. And then bringing color from the back of the eye here. Now I like to leave a little bit of a skin gap at the back there. You don't have to, it's up to you. Okay, so bringing that color around and forward. And again, as I reach the front here, I'm going to just blend my color forward a little bit so that we have a nice highlight at the front of that eye. Now to start painting in your tentacles, you're going to follow your gray wash essentially. So start with your darkest area of color, exactly where you did your gray wash shading at the center of the tentacle there. And then you can always blend out from there towards the edge. So as you can see, doing this method allows you to separate those two sort of structures and have a highlight running down each of them. For other areas of tentacle that don't have those contour lines as strongly indicated, you can pretty much come in with solid red. I like to sort of just have a little bit of a fade towards the sucker portion of the tentacle, so just bringing it around that red color, and then you can always work on just blending that down towards the suckers. Now I've gone ahead and used the same method to paint all of the tentacles, with the exception of my little background shadow tentacle here. So I did that in gray wash earlier, and then I just went over the ends of it with orange or red, and then blended that towards the center. So this helps sort of push it back into the background a little bit, but you'd have to experiment with that and see what works well for you. Now the last thing I'm going to do is go into my turquoise mixed with water, and I'm going to be using that to paint in the little suckers. Now this is like a turquoise wash, so you can pretty much just apply that straight over the section with the suckers. And if you've done your gray wash shading correctly, this the shape and the shading for these will look correct. So as long as you've done your gray wash shading right, then you can pretty much just layer your turquoise straight over the top. You don't need to do any blending, shading, or individual sections of color. So I just wanted to demonstrate that the section in between the suckers and in the very center of the suckers looks a little bit darker, but it's still turquoise. And then the rings themselves are quite bright. Now the reason for this is because we did that nice undercoat of gray wash shading, so that is super important. Now that is it for this design, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope you give it a go. This one was a lot of fun, and you'll have to let me know in the comment section down below what tutorials you'd like to see or what other style videos you'd like to see on my channel. And that having been said, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Okay, bye-bye. If you like the content that I make and you'd like to support the channel, make sure you smash that like button. And hey, while you're at it, check out one of these other great videos.